is there any particular advice that you would want to give the audience, like, entrepreneurs who are looking to, start their ventures, get out of their comfort zone? Is there any suggestion that you'd like to give?
Just find something what you love, and that's it. It will be enough. So all the rest is details. All the rest will come. But if you love something, so it will create enough energy and motivation to pass through all issues, through all negative news. Like in the places where I'm from, the most important phrase is just that entrepreneurs are the guys who are able to bury and to have very good tolerance to frustration. Because every day you receive maybe 50 bad news. Investors not giving you money, employees not coming to work, some issues, blah blah blah, customers not repeating orders. So you receive actually all day long very, very bad news. And so the ability to carry this bad news and not to not being frustrated and continue doing actions, this define how good entrepreneur is. So more negative news he can bury, so better business he can build. So
I mean, people usually look at the best side of them when they are successful.
Yeah.
They don't tend to look at the challenges or like you suggested, the bad news, the anxiety, the I would say the horrors of entrepreneurship. Like, they look at the success story, but not really what led that person to be successful. And I think that's amazing. That's a great advice for the audience. Be patient and be focused on what you want to do. And I would say resilience is something where you can overcome, these bad news and focus on that one shot.
How did you leverage this technology to connect with your clients? I mean, I'd love to have some.
Well, during the pandemic,
yes,
because here in the New York City, particularly in New York City, the Brooklyn area, we had an incredibly high rate of COVID, the pandemic. Here in New York City, with the quarantining and back and forth. But there was a period of time in the beginning, for almost a year, which was beneficial. I personally still went into the facility to see my patients. But I offered as well. So some of our therapists actually via computer did what's called teletherapy. So they would use web conferencing, particularly, I think it was Zoom. I'm not quite sure exactly, because they could certainly use whatever web conferencing they want to where they would actually connect with the patients at the facility. So we had a separate office where there was a laptop there, and they would sit there and they would have session with the patient. And that is how technology benefited, particularly during the COVID pandemic, where everything was quarantined.
So how much of this is, does it actually exist, or how do you identify that, obviously we wouldn't want you to compromise any real life story without, or revealing any information. We wouldn't want any of that, but how have you seen it affect an individual?
Well, I have seen, particularly when we talk a little bit about nomophobia, we talk about internet addiction. I helped a lady some time ago. I'll kind of mix the details. But as I said, she literally had a panic attack. She ended up calling me because she couldn't find her mobile device, an actual panic attack. And for those who are listening or watching that are behavioral healthcare professionals, a panic attack is something quite serious. Turns out, by the grace of God, she had called, and me being a psychologist, knowing what a panic attack is, I slowly assisted her to calm down. Turns out she found the mobile device, I think it was her iPhone, fell behind the rear well of her car in her garage. So she was able to find it. But when you think about panic, when you think about anxiety, I come from a world of a pre-information age world where panic disorder, a person is experiencing a panic attack because of their abusive husband, their abusive father, or something that travesty occurred, real anxiety. But to experience true panic because you can't locate a mobile device, that really hits home just how important technology is to all of us.
I mean, one of the things that we've worked on in-house quite a lot for investors and things that we want to release and we're speaking about is that because we are past the sort of obstacles of building tech now, there's people like yourselves that can put great product together at a cost that's affordable. It becomes now about the founders, even more than it was before. The founders had to prove themselves previously that they were great engineers, and I think the investors would tell them this is how you go to market and we can support that journey. Now it's turned around, and some of our discoveries have been that the most successful companies, not at the sort of VC 100x level, but sustainable companies that go out, build a business, make some money, remember that? Make some money along the journey, and build a good old-fashioned business that's solid, using technology, of course, but not being a blowout, a unicorn, or whatever you want to call them. Just building a great business. The leader of that business seems to, in my experience, and I've looked at this pretty deeply, he's a vertical expert, he's a domain expert. And that, for me, is what the game changer is.
Okay.
Between 10 years ago, having to be an engineer, I think today is the day of domain experts. They probably work for someone right now. With what's going on in the market, they probably don't have the guts to jump ship. But what you can do today is use someone, a venture builder, to go and build that MVP for you, to go and verify that business for you for very little. And you can sit in your job and do the two. Once you've validated, you leave your job and you start that business. And I think that is the model of today that can work.
I don't think events are old school, and I'll tell you why. Because I think, Hadi, people ultimately want to talk to people, and I don't see that ever changing, quite frankly. Now, obviously, we had a disruption during the pandemic where in-person events were much harder, right? And we all sort of stayed in our homes or close to our homes, and we had to sort of reset our expectations around what it meant to talk to other folks. There was a lot more spending time on Teams, right? And a lot more talking on the phone and things like that. But at Nerdio, we're gonna participate and run more than 300 events in 2022. So that's actually pretty shocking if you think about it. 300 events. There's call it 250 work days this year. So you say, well, how are you going to run 300 events? Well, we really value the opportunity to get out there and chat with partners and potential clients and existing partners and clients. So I think events are going to continue to be a big part of how we connect with each other. Certainly, we've seen the explosion in digital over the past decade. Certainly, things like your podcast and other podcasts and webinars have grown in popularity. I'm a big podcast listener, and I think that there's incredible learning to be had from others. So those are all going to continue. But it's hard for me to say sort of or precisely define what's old school and what's new school. I think our perspective is something we learned from a great analyst in our space, Jay McBain. Be present everywhere, and that's what we try to do at Nerdio. We try to meet our potential customers, our existing customers and partners where they are, and sometimes that means being in person at an event. Sometimes it means doing a call with them. Other times it means hopefully listening to us on a podcast like the TekRevol one.
A lot of the reasons that people give me for not selling their business now are exactly the reasons why they should sell it. So, the story I often tell is I had this call center business and we had a contract with the world's largest insurance company. And it was a 3-year contract and it spat off loads and loads of cash. And so my reasoning for not selling that business was that it had a 3-year contract with the world's largest insurance company. Now, as it happened, the world's largest insurance company, AIG, went bust, and the contract became worthless, and that business ultimately became worthless. Now, that's not to say I should have sold it because it went bust, but the reason I didn't sell it, that it had the 3-year contract with the world's largest insurance company, would have been a great reason for the buyer to buy it.
Right.
They would like to buy a company that has that kind of contract in place. So my reason for not selling it was the perfect reason to sell it.
I think having a powerful morning routine is life-changing. How you start your day makes the biggest difference to how the rest of your day goes. If you just kind of wake up, you're lying in bed, scrolling through emails and messages, your mind is overloaded before you've even gotten out of bed, right? You might get something that's causing you stress and your day's already ruined, right? So, really fuel your body in the morning, your mind, your soul, your body, get active, move in the morning. I like to also do some meditation in the morning. I like to do some exercise, really have that sacred time for you that you've poured into your own cup. Because as an entrepreneur, you're giving a lot. You're giving energy, you're giving time, you're giving value, whatever it is, we're in the space to give. And so you really need to first start the day by giving to yourself. So work on creating something that in the morning, you're ready to go. You have that energy.
Artificial intelligence cannot exist or succeed without human collaboration. So we don't separate them, right? There's no replacing a human where we are. And I feel like this is something we have a hard time communicating. So let me try. AI on its own is very cold. It's a robot. And humans on their own can be very slow and maybe not at their best, let's say. But together, and only together, is in our world, and in content creation specifically, is when you see it really light up. So the AI at Lately, for example, will already get you to third base already. We're going to start you there. With the human involved, we'll get you not only the distance around the plate and to home, but you get a run also. So it is a 1 + 1 = 33,000. It's so much bigger, right? A lot of that is because artificial intelligence is like a garden. You have to tend it. You have to keep it learning and, guide it around. And I think the other component as well is we're seeing our customers do dual learning. So they're teaching the AI, but they're also learning from it at the same time. That ties back into that. Remember that je ne sais quoi of the imagination, the fill in the blank, the third character? That's what it is at Lately as well. So that's why the human can't be defined and bottled and boxed. So many people in SaaS, especially investors, I'm talking to you, want to do this to us, okay? Right? They want to just check all the boxes, but you miss the unicorns, you miss the decacorns when you're doing that. Stop it.
I mean, your journey has been amazing. Self-taught. Any advice that you would want to give to someone working within your industry?
Within the energy sector, I think you need patience, you need perseverance. I think those two things are quite key for the energy sector. I mean, I think I said we had a smart metering product in 2005 and then kind of had to wait till 2015 before it became commercially good for me, even if it was already commercially relevant to the small number of people that had, say, smart meters. So I think patience is key, and that goes hand in hand with there are various people can see the various things we need to do to reach net zero, particularly in some of these complex markets. But as we've just discussed, that's going to take regulatory change, which is a slow-moving vehicle. I think more broadly in tech, which of course we're a tech company, but we're also in energy. So I sit looking at two industries, if that makes sense.
Even hardware. I mean, obviously, hardware is involved as well. IoT.
Yeah, sure. I mean, they're the bits of machinery that collect the data that feed our systems. We're a good couple of steps removed from the hardware end of the data collection. Right?
Smart systems. I mean, obviously, that's the elimination of those hardware. I mean, the dependency on that.
Yeah, from a software perspective, it's always best to be agnostic.
Absolutely.
biggest problem while trading on these platforms was this: we had one of the families for whom we were trading, and we normally open the accounts on the family's name. And there was one guy who was with the age of 78, and we had a larger amount on one of the exchange, and there was always a question mark that what happens if anything happens to the member because of the age. So when we went live on our exchange, we started developing a proprietary tech, which was a nomination program, and we were covered by more than 500 publishers. Not now, because now everyone is speaking about the nominations and inheritance, but back in April 2022 we were covered by Cointelegraph, and then we were covered by more than 500 publishers. They ran a poll back in 2020, what happens to your Bitcoin when you die? And the answer, they wrote in the article that answering the morbid question, what happens to a Bitcoin when you die? And there is an exchange which is one of its kind right now, which has this tech on blockchain, where each and every user on day one gets an option to nominate their family members on blockchain, everything recorded, and if anything happens to them, all the assets will be transferred to them. When we were developing this platform, we were very clear that we don't want to take a risk in terms of wallets, because the technology is evolving, and we've already seen largest of the largest platform getting hacked, or the intentions were not clear, and we will be very clear that we will go with one of the topmost custodian. When we went live, we went with 5 as a custodian, and that's where we come in. There are few features which was not available with anyone. They have an MPC wallet. They are the leaders in the tech since last 6 years. In terms of custody management, they don't have any platform, they don't have any borrow lend kind of a thing. They are pure custodian, and we were more than happy to go with the platform which is pure custodian, which is not into different kinds of services, wherein they leverage themselves and we get screwed up. So since 2 years we are using 5 as a custodian, and we are using to that core that each and every user, when they onboard, so there are many institutions, basically 5 is an institutional custodian where they use their own custody with them, but we delayed our platform by 6 months just to get in each and every user vault to be integrated on the custodian. So whenever a user onboards with us, their vault is created with the custodian, so we don't manage the funds. All the funds are with the custodian. We are here to give you a seamless platform and an idiot-proof platform.